The ballroom fell silent the moment Lady Whitmore's voice cut through the music like shattered glass. "This," she announced, gripping her niece's arm with manicured cruelty, "is what happens when poverty tries to dress itself in borrowed silk." Laughter erupted. Sharp, vicious, practiced. Eliza Harrow didn't flinch. She'd learned long ago that survival meant swallowing humiliation like medicine. But then the Duke of Vale moved, not toward the champagne, not toward the exit, toward her. And when his cold gray eyes locked onto hers, something dangerous flickered in the space between them. A recognition, a challenge, a refusal to look away. What happened next would either destroy her or remake everything she thought she knew about power. If you want to see how far this story goes, how a woman with nothing becomes impossible to ignore, stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see where this journey takes us. The first rule Eliza Harrow learned after losing everything was simple: make yourself small. The second rule was harder: never let them see you break. She'd been practicing both for 3 years. The Whitmore Estate ballroom glittered like something out of a fever dream, all crystal chandeliers and polished marble, the kind of opulence designed to remind you exactly where you stood in the hierarchy of worth. Eliza stood near the refreshment table, her posture perfect, her pale blue gown immaculate despite being 2 seasons out of fashion. She'd repaired the hem herself by candlelight the night before, her fingers cramping around the needle. No one could tell. That was the point. "More champagne, Miss Harrow?" The footman's voice was polite, but his eyes slid past her like she was furniture. She shook her head, offering a practiced smile that cost nothing and meant less. She didn't drink at these events, couldn't afford to. One slip, one unguarded moment, and her aunt would have fresh ammunition. Lady Genevieve Whitmore, her mother's older sister, her reluctant guardian, her constant tormentor, held court across the room in peacock blue taffeta, surrounded by London's most influential wives. Eliza could hear her aunt's laughter from here, bright and musical, the kind that made strangers feel instantly welcome. Eliza knew better. "I do hope you're not monopolizing the refreshments, dear." The voice came from behind her, syrupy and sharp. Eliza turned to find Beatrice Ashford, a baron's daughter with more malice than sense, flanked by 2 other young women whose names Eliza had stopped bothering to remember. "Of course not," Eliza said evenly. "Help yourself." Beatrice's smile didn't reach her eyes. "How gracious. Though I suppose you'd know about helping yourself. I heard the Countess of Pembroke's diamond bracelet went missing at the last gathering you attended." The implication landed like a slap. The 2 companions giggled behind gloved hands. Eliza's jaw tightened, but her expression remained placid. The bracelet was found in the Countess's own jewel box the next morning. A servant had misplaced it. How convenient." Beatrice plucked a pastry from the table, examining it with exaggerated interest. "Still, one does wonder why you continue attending these events. Charity only extends so far, doesn't it?" Before Eliza could respond, not that she would have, there was no winning these exchanges, a deeper voice cut through the tension. "Miss Ashford, I wasn't aware the refreshment table had become a venue for amateur theater." Beatrice's face went white, then pink. She spun around, nearly dropping her pastry. Lord Edmund Carver stood there, his expression mildly amused, one hand tucked casually in his waistcoat pocket. He was handsome in that effortless way certain men were. Dark hair, easy smile, the comfortable confidence of someone who'd never questioned his place in the world. "Lord Carver," Beatrice stammered, we were just leaving, I hope." His tone was pleasant enough, but carried an edge that made the 2 companions flinch. "I believe your mother is looking for you, something about your behavior requiring supervision." Beatrice's mouth opened and closed like a landed fish. Then she turned on her heel and fled, her friends scurrying after her. Edmund turned to Eliza, his smile warming. "Miss Harrow, you look radiant this evening." "You don't have to do that," Eliza said quietly. "Do what?" "Lie to make me feel better. I look," she glanced down at her gown, "adequate, which is the best I can manage on my circumstances." Something flickered in Edmund's expression. Not pity, exactly, but close enough to sting. "Eliza, don't." She kept her voice light, conversational. Anyone watching would think they were discussing the weather. "I know what I am, what I'm not. The kindness is appreciated, but unnecessary." Edmund stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You deserve better than this. Better than her." He didn't need to specify who he meant. If you would just consider, but Edmund, please. They'd had this conversation before. Edmund Carver, second son of a viscount, possessed of a modest income and genuinely kind heart, had been proposing marriage, in increasingly creative ways, for the past 6 months. He offered security, companionship, escape from her aunt's household. Eliza couldn't accept. Not because she didn't appreciate the offer, not because Edmund wasn't a good man, but because marrying him would mean surrendering the one thing she had left, the possibility of building something that was truly hers. The manuscript hidden beneath her mattress, the pen name E.H. Sterling, that was slowly gaining recognition in London's literary circles. The modest payments from her publisher that she hoarded like dragon's gold, saving every penny toward independence. No one knew. Not Edmund. Not her aunt. No one. It was the only secret she owned, and she guarded it like her life depended on it. Because it did. I should, Eliza began, but Edmund caught her hand. One dance, he said. Grant me that, at least. Before she could refuse, the music shifted. A waltz, sweeping and romantic. Couples began moving toward the floor. Edmund's expression turned hopeful, almost boyish. Eliza hesitated, then nodded. His face lit up. He led her onto the floor with the careful courtesy he showed everything, one hand settling at her waist, the other clasping hers. They began to move. You're too tense, Edmund murmured. Relax. Difficult when half the room is staring. Let them stare. You're the most interesting woman here. I'm the poorest woman here. There's a difference. Edmund's hand tightened slightly at her waist. Eliza, I'm not being self-pitying, she said, keeping her tone matter-of-fact. Just honest. They see poverty and assume moral failing. That's how it works. Then they're fools. Fools with power. She met his eyes. Which makes them dangerous fools. The waltz carried them past a cluster of matrons who watched with barely concealed disapproval. Eliza recognized the calculation in their gazes. Edmund Carver, eligible bachelor, wasting his attention on a penniless nobody. Unacceptable. Someone would speak to his father. Someone always did. Ignore them, Edmund said, reading her expression. Easy for you to say. Is it? His voice turned serious. You think I don't see how they treat you? How your own aunt? He stopped himself, jaw tightening. If you would just accept my proposal, none of this would matter. You'd be protected, respected. I'd be your wife. Eliza kept her voice gentle. Dependent on your goodwill, your income, your continued affection. You say that like I'd withdraw any of those things. You wouldn't. I know that. She did. Edmund was genuinely good. But the system would remain. I'd trade one form of powerlessness for another. Marriage doesn't have to be... Edmund, she interrupted him softly. I care for you, truly, but I can't. His expression crumpled, just slightly, before he reassembled it into something neutral, professional. I understand. He couldn't, but Eliza appreciated the attempt. The waltz ended. Edmund bowed correctly, formally. Thank you for the dance, Miss Harrow. The pleasure was mine, Lord Carver. The script of politeness, the armor of manners. Edmund disappeared into the crowd. Eliza made her way toward the terrace doors, suddenly desperate for air that didn't smell like perfume and barely concealed contempt. She almost made it. Eliza, darling, her aunt's voice pitched to Carrie. Eliza turned slowly. Lady Whitmore stood at the center of a group of elegantly dressed women, all of them watching Eliza with the focused interest of cats spotting a mouse. Her aunt's smile was brilliant and completely terrifying. Do come here, dear. Lady Pemberton was just asking about you. It wasn't a request. Eliza crossed the ballroom, very aware of the eyes following her. She'd learned to recognize her aunt's moods the way sailors learn to read storms. This particular smile, bright, brittle, dangerous, meant punishment was coming. She just didn't know what flavor yet. Lady Pemberton, Eliza said, curtsying to a severe-looking woman in burgundy silk. How lovely to see you again. Lady Pemberton's gaze raked over Eliza like she was livestock. Your aunt tells me you've been quite occupied with charitable work lately. Eliza's stomach dropped. Charitable work was code, specifically code for too poor to participate in society properly. I do what I can, Eliza said carefully. How admirable! Lady Pemberton's tone suggested it was anything but. Though I confess I'm curious, what exactly does a young woman with no fortune, no prospects, and no connections contribute to society? Beyond being a burden to her relations, of course. The words landed like stones. The other women shifted, some looking uncomfortable, others barely hiding smiles. Eliza's aunt laughed, that musical, devastating sound. Oh, Lady Pemberton, you're too harsh. Eliza does have her uses. She's quite good at mending things. Aren't you, dear? Translation. She's so poor she does her own needlework like a servant. Essential skills, Eliza agreed, her voice steady. One never knows when they might prove useful. Indeed. Her aunt's smile sharpened. Though I do wonder sometimes if we're doing you a disservice, allowing you to attend these events. Setting expectations you'll never be able to meet. Exposing you to a world that will never truly accept you. The cruelty was casual, almost absent-minded. That's what made it worse. Perhaps, Lady Pemberton agreed, a more suitable placement might be found. I hear the Ashfords are looking for a companion for Lady Ashford's elderly mother. It wouldn't pay much, of course, but room and board would be included. A companion, a dressed-up servant, the final humiliation. Eliza felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. How thoughtful of you to consider my welfare. We do try. Her aunt's hand settled on Eliza's shoulder, the grip just slightly too tight. Though I confess, the expense of maintaining you has become rather burdensome. Your dear departed mother would be mortified to know how much you've cost me. There it was. The blade, slid in with surgical precision. Eliza's mother, Caroline Harrow, née Whitmore, had died in disgrace, her husband's gambling debts dragging the family into ruin. Eliza had been 17, alone, orphaned, watching bailiffs strip her childhood home of everything including dignity. Her aunt had taken her in. Never let her forget the favor. I'm deeply grateful, Eliza said, the words dust in her mouth. Are you? Lady Whitmore's voice turned contemplative. I wonder. Gratitude would suggest some effort to improve your situation. Instead, you reject perfectly suitable offers, Lord Carver, for instance, and continue to drain resources while contributing nothing. The group of women watched avidly. This was entertainment, a public execution conducted with smiles and silk. I apologize if I've been... This, her aunt announced, cutting her off, her voice rising just enough to draw attention from nearby conversations, is what happens when poverty tries to dress itself in borrowed silk. The laughter started immediately. Polite, vicious, practiced. Eliza stood frozen. The ballroom seemed to tilt, faces swam. Everything narrowed to her aunt's triumphant smile and the sound of mockery echoing off marble and crystal. She didn't cry, wouldn't give them that. Instead, she did what she always did, absorbed it, swallowed it, survived it. Perhaps you're right, Eliza said quietly. Excuse me. She turned to leave, head high, spine straight, every inch of dignity she could manufacture, when the crowd shifted. Someone was moving through the ballroom, not casually, not socializing, moving with purpose. The conversations died in ripples, spreading outward from wherever he walked. Eliza recognized the phenomenon. She'd seen it before, the way certain people commanded space just by occupying it. She turned and found herself staring at the Duke of Vale. Adrian Vale was not a man who attended many social events. When he did, he was noted, discussed, dissected. 32 years old, unmarried, possessed of a fortune that made even the wealthiest peers envious and a reputation that made mothers lock their daughters away. He was called cold, calculating, dangerous. Eliza had seen him before, everyone had, but never this close. He was tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in black that made him look like a knife wound in the glittering ballroom. His face was all sharp angles and aristocratic arrogance, dark hair swept back, gray eyes that seemed to categorize everything they touched. Those eyes landed on Eliza and didn't look away. The ballroom went silent. Adrian Vale crossed the floor with deliberate, measured steps. The crowd parted like water. He moved past Lady Pemberton without acknowledging her, past the clutch of matrons who'd been laughing moments before, past Eliza's aunt whose face had gone carefully blank. He stopped directly in front of Eliza. Miss Harrow. His voice was dark, controlled, absolutely devoid of warmth. Eliza's brain stuttered. He knew her name. The Duke of Vale knew her name. Your Grace! She curtsied automatically, years of training overriding shock. "You'll dine with me tonight." Not a question. A statement. Eliza stared at him. What?" "Dinner." His expression didn't change. "My table. Now." The ballroom erupted in whispers. Eliza could feel her aunt's fury radiating from 3 feet away, could sense the shock rippling through every witness. The Duke of Vale didn't issue public invitations, didn't engage with society beyond what was absolutely necessary, and he certainly didn't cross a crowded ballroom to claim a nobody for dinner. "I don't understand," Eliza said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You don't need to understand." Adrian's gaze flicked past her to Lady Whitmore, something cold and cutting in the look. "You need to accept." Eliza's mind raced. This was insane. Impossible. Some kind of elaborate joke or test or... But Adrian Vale wasn't known for jokes. "Yes," she heard herself say. "Thank you, Your Grace." His hand extended, gloved, formal. Eliza placed her fingers in his palm. The contact sent electricity up her arm. Adrian turned, tucking her hand into the crook of his elbow with the casual possession of someone who'd just acquired property. He began walking, and Eliza moved with him because the alternative was being dragged. Behind them, the ballroom exploded into chaos. Adrian didn't look back, didn't acknowledge the uproar. He simply walked, his pace measured, his grip on her hand firm but not painful, until they reached a private dining area off the main hall. A table had been set for 2, crystal and silver gleaming, candles already lit. He'd planned this. Adrian released her hand, gesturing to one of the chairs. "Sit." Eliza sat. Her legs felt unreliable. Adrian took the opposite chair with the same controlled grace he did everything. A servant appeared from nowhere. When had he arrived? And began serving the first course. Eliza watched soup appear in front of her, her mind blank with shock. "Eat," Adrian said. "Why?" The word escaped before she could stop it. Adrian's gaze lifted from his own plate. "You're going to require more specific questions than that." "Why did you—" Eliza gestured vaguely toward the ballroom. "That. Any of that. Eat first. Questions after." "I don't take orders well." Noted. Something that might have been amusement flickered in his expression. "Eat anyway. You look half-starved." The blunt observation should have been insulting. Instead, it was just true. Eliza picked up her spoon with trembling fingers and tasted the soup. It was perfect. Rich, warm, seasoned exactly right. She realized she hadn't eaten since breakfast. A piece of toast and weak tea. Adrian watched her with the focus of someone studying a puzzle. "When did you last have a proper meal?" "That's an intrusive question. And yet I'm asking it." Eliza set down her spoon. 2 days ago, my aunt hosted a luncheon I was permitted to attend." "Permitted?" He repeated the word like it tasted foul. "You live in her house." "As an act of charity she never lets me forget." Eliza met his eyes. "Which you apparently witnessed, along with everyone else in that ballroom. So this is, what? Pity? Some elaborate game?" "If I wanted to play games, Miss Harrow, I'd choose less complicated targets." Adrian leaned back in his chair. "Your aunt is a vicious woman who takes pleasure in humiliation. You endured that performance without breaking. I found it interesting." "Interesting? You were expecting flattery?" "I was expecting nothing. I still am." Eliza forced herself to maintain eye contact. "Men like you don't notice women like me unless they want something. What do you want?" Adrian's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. Recognition, maybe, or respect. "Finish your soup," he said. "Then we'll discuss what I want." Eliza wanted to refuse, wanted to stand up, walk out, reject this entire bizarre situation. But she was hungry, and the soup was there. And Adrian Vale was watching her with those calculating gray eyes that saw too much. So she ate. The meal progressed in near silence. Course after course appeared. Fish, fowl, vegetables prepared with a care that made Eliza want to weep. She ate carefully, precisely, aware of Adrian's continued observation. Finally, over dessert, some kind of berry tart that tasted like summer, Adrian spoke. "You right." Eliza's fork froze halfway to her mouth. "Excuse me?" "Novels. Under the name E.H. Sterling. He said it casually, like he was commenting on the weather. I've read 2 of them. Competent prose, interesting character work. The plots need refinement. The world stopped. No one knew. No one. How did you... Eliza's voice came out strangled. I make it my business to know things. Adrian studied her panic with clinical interest. Your publisher is discreet but not invisible. Neither are you, when one knows what to look for. Are you going to tell my aunt? Why would I do that? I don't know. Blackmail? Control? I don't need blackmail to control you, Miss Harrow. If I wanted you controlled, I'd simply inform your aunt. She'd destroy those manuscripts and lock you in a room until you learned proper submission. He paused. I have no interest in doing that. Then what do you want? Adrian set down his wine glass with careful precision. I want to make you an offer. I'm not interested in becoming anyone's mistress. Good. I'm not interested in acquiring one. His tone was matter-of-fact. What I'm offering is significantly more complicated. Eliza waited. Your aunt will cast you out, Adrian continued. Soon. Within the month, I'd estimate. That performance tonight was the beginning of the end. She's bored with you, and your presence has become more liability than entertainment. The words confirmed what Eliza already knew, had known. And when she does, you'll have nowhere to go. No income beyond your novels, which pay barely enough to keep you fed, much less housed. Edmund Carver will propose again. You'll be desperate enough to accept. You've given this considerable thought. I give everything considerable thought. Adrian leaned forward slightly. Here's what I'm proposing. When your aunt casts you out, you come to my estate, not as a dependent, not as charity, as a resident with autonomy, resources, and protection. Eliza stared at him. In exchange for what? Nothing. People don't offer something for nothing. I'm not people. He held her gaze. But if you require a transaction to make this palatable, I'm offering you time and space to write, free from interference. In exchange, you'll allow me to read your work and offer critique. That's the extent of the arrangement. It was insane, impossible, and exactly what she needed. Why? Eliza asked. Because watching talented people get crushed by stupidity offends me. Adrian's voice remained even. Because your aunt is a parasite, and Edmund Carver, well-meaning as he is, would smother you. Because I'm curious to see what you might accomplish with actual resources. You don't know me. I know you survived 3 years in that woman's house without breaking. I know you write novels in secret and save every penny toward independence. I know you'd rather starve than accept pity. He paused. That's enough. Eliza's hands shook. She clenched them in her lap. This is madness. Probably. Society would destroy my reputation. Society already considers you nothing. You have no reputation to destroy. The brutal honesty should have hurt. Instead, it felt like relief. And what do you gain? Eliza pressed. Truly. Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then, I gain watching someone interesting succeed. That's rare enough to be valuable. Eliza searched his face for deception, found only that cold, calculating assessment. I need to think about this. Take your time. Adrian stood, the movement fluid. But not too much. Your aunt's patience is running out faster than you think. He gestured toward the door. The meal was over. Eliza rose on unsteady legs. Adrian offered his arm again, that same formal courtesy, and escorted her back to the ballroom. The whispers started the moment they appeared. Adrian walked her to the edge of the crowd, then released her hand. Consider my offer, Miss Harrow. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night like he'd never been there at all. Eliza stood alone, the entire ballroom staring, her aunt's furious gaze burning into her back. Everything had changed, and she had absolutely no idea what happened next. Eliza didn't sleep that night. She lay in her narrow bed in the servants' wing, because of course her aunt had placed her there, a daily reminder of her position, and stared at the cracked ceiling while her mind replayed every moment of that impossible dinner. I know you right. The words kept circling back, sharp-edged and terrifying. Adrian Vale knew her secret, could destroy her with a single conversation, and instead he'd offered her, what, freedom? Protection? A trap she couldn't see yet? The gray light of dawn crept through her single window. Eliza gave up on sleep, dressed quickly in her plainest gown, dark gray wool, mended at the elbows, and made her way downstairs. The house was quiet, too quiet. She found out why when she entered the breakfast room. Her aunt sat at the head of the table, already dressed in emerald silk despite the early hour. A newspaper lay open beside her plate. She didn't look up when Eliza entered. "Good morning, Aunt Genevieve." Silence. Eliza moved toward the sideboard where a meager breakfast had been laid out. Toast, weak tea, no butter or jam. She'd learned not to expect more. "Sit down." Her aunt's voice was ice. Eliza sat, her hands folded carefully in her lap. Lady Whitmore finally looked up. Her face was composed, but fury lived in her eyes, hot and vicious. "Would you care to explain last night's performance?" "I don't know what you mean." "Don't play stupid. It doesn't suit you." Her aunt's fingers drummed against the tablecloth. "The Duke of Vale. Dinner, in full view of everyone who matters in London society. He invited me. I accepted. It would have been rude to refuse." "Rude?" Lady Whitmore laughed, brittle and sharp. "You think rudeness is your concern? Do you have any idea what you've done?" Eliza stayed silent, safer that way. "I have spent 3 years," her aunt continued, each word precise, "carefully managing expectations around you, making it clear you are here on sufferance, that you have no prospects, no value, nothing to offer anyone. And in one evening, you've made a spectacle of yourself with one of the most powerful men in England. I didn't seek his attention. That's irrelevant. You accepted it, publicly." Her aunt stood, moving around the table with predatory grace. "People are talking, speculating, wondering what possible interest the Duke of Vale could have in my penniless, nobody niece. Perhaps you should ask him." The slap came fast, cracking across Eliza's cheek hard enough to snap her head sideways. Pain bloomed, sharp and immediate. Eliza touched her face, tasted blood where her teeth had cut the inside of her mouth. She didn't cry out, didn't react beyond that initial flinch. She'd learned that too. "You forget yourself," Lady Whitmore said, her voice deadly calm. "You are nothing. A burden I took in out of obligation to my dead sister, your pathetic, foolish mother who married a gambler and died in disgrace. Everything you have because I allow it. The roof over your head, the food you eat, the air you breathe in this house." Eliza met her aunt's eyes, said nothing. "I want you gone." The words should have been shocking. They weren't. "When?" Eliza asked. Her aunt smiled, slow and cruel. "You have until the end of the week to make arrangements. Find employment, secure lodging, I don't care. But you will not remain under my roof a day longer than necessary." 5 days. "I understand," Eliza said. "Do you?" Lady Whitmore leaned close, her perfume cloying. "Because I wonder if you truly grasp your situation. You have no money, no references I'm willing to provide, no prospects. Edmund Carver might have been your salvation, but you were too proud to accept him. Now you'll discover exactly what pride costs." She straightened, smoothing her skirts. "You're dismissed. Pack your things. Stay out of sight. I don't want to see your face again unless absolutely necessary." Eliza stood on shaking legs and left the room. She made it to the stairs before her composure cracked. Not into tears, she was past tears, but into something harder. A cold, clear fury that settled in her chest like ice. 5 days. She climbed to her room, locked the door, and pulled out the battered trunk she'd brought with her 3 years ago. Most of her possessions fit easily. She owned almost nothing. A few dresses, all old, some undergarments, a hairbrush with half the bristles missing, and beneath the false bottom she'd carefully constructed her manuscripts. 3 completed novels, 2 published under her pen name, 1 still in progress, her life's work, her escape plan, her future. Eliza sat on the floor and did the math she'd been avoiding for months. Her publisher paid her £20 per novel. She'd received £40 total, saved every penny. It was currently hidden in a sock beneath her mattress. The sum total of her worldly wealth. £40. In London, that might cover 2 months' rent in the cheapest boarding house. Maybe 3 if she starved. Then what? She could write faster, sell more books, but novels took time and publishers took longer. She'd be destitute long before the next payment arrived. Edmund would still marry her. She knew that with absolute certainty. He'd rescue her, provide for her, ask nothing except that she be grateful, and she'd spend the rest of her life suffocating. Or, Eliza pulled out a piece of paper, expensive stock she'd stolen from her aunt's study months ago, and began to write. Your Grace, I accept your offer. Please advise on arrangements. E. Harrow Short, professional. Gave nothing away. She sealed it, addressed it to Vale House, and sat staring at the letter for a full hour. This was insane. Accepting help from a man she didn't know, moving into his home, trusting his word that this wasn't some elaborate scheme. But the alternative was Edmund's well-meaning cage or slow starvation in a boarding house while she tried to write fast enough to survive. At least Adrian Vale's offer came with honesty. He wanted nothing from her except her work. No promises of affection, no expectations of gratitude. Just a transaction, space for critique. It was the cleanest offer she'd ever received. Eliza stood, tucked the letter into her sleeve, and went to find a footman willing to deliver it for a penny she couldn't afford. The reply came that afternoon. Not a letter. A carriage. It arrived without warning, gleaming black lacquer with the Vale crest emblazoned on the door. The entire household stopped to stare as a liveried footman knocked on the front door. Eliza was summoned from her room by a wide-eyed maid. Miss Harrow, there's a carriage. For you. Eliza descended the stairs to find her aunt standing in the foyer, her face frozen in an expression caught between fury and shock. The footman bowed. Miss Harrow, His Grace the Duke of Vale requests your presence at Vale House at your earliest convenience. I'm to wait for your answer. The silence was deafening. Eliza glanced at her aunt, whose knuckles had gone white gripping her skirts. Tell His Grace I'll need an hour to gather my things. Very good, miss. The footman withdrew. The door closed. Lady Whitmore found her voice. What is the meaning of this? I'm leaving, Eliza said simply. As you requested. To go where? Vale House. The Duke has offered me residence. Her aunt's face went purple. As what? His whore? As a writer. Eliza kept her voice level. He's interested in my work. Your work, Lady Whitmore spat the word. You don't have work. You have delusions and borrowed paper. Nevertheless, I'm accepting his offer. You'll be ruined. Utterly destroyed. No respectable person will speak to you. Good thing I'm not respectable then. Eliza turned toward the stairs. Her aunt's voice followed her, shrill now. If you walk out that door, you can never come back. Do you understand me? Never. Eliza paused, looking back. I understand perfectly. She climbed the stairs for the last time. An hour later, she descended carrying her trunk and wearing her least mended dress. The servants had gathered in the hallway, pretending to work while watching avidly. The footman took her trunk without comment. Eliza walked toward the door. Eliza? She stopped, turned. Her aunt stood rigid in the drawing room doorway. For a moment, just a flash, something almost human crossed her face. Then it hardened. You'll regret this. Probably, Eliza agreed. But at least it will be my mistake to make. She walked out into the gray London afternoon and climbed into the Duke of Vale's carriage. The interior smelled like leather and expensive tobacco. The seats were soft enough to sink into. Eliza sat very straight, her hands folded, watching her aunt's house disappear behind them. She didn't look back. The journey to Vale House took 30 minutes through increasingly elegant neighborhoods. Eliza watched the city transform from crowded streets to tree-lined squares to finally a district where houses became estates. Vale House sat behind iron gates and manicured gardens. It was massive. 3 stories of pale stone, windows gleaming, grounds that seemed to stretch forever. Eliza's stomach dropped. What had she done? The carriage stopped. The footman opened her door, offering his hand. Eliza stepped down onto gravel that crunched beneath her worn boots. The front door opened. A butler emerged. Elderly, impeccably dressed, expression carefully neutral. Miss Harrow, welcome to Vale House. I am Henderson. His Grace is expecting you in the library. Eliza followed him through an entrance hall that could have swallowed her aunt's entire ground floor. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, portraits of stern-faced ancestors lining the walls. Henderson led her down a corridor and stopped before a heavy oak door. He knocked once, opened it, and stepped aside. Miss Harrow, Your Grace. Eliza entered. The library was enormous. 2 stories of books lining every wall, a spiral staircase leading to a second level, windows overlooking gardens. The late afternoon light slanted through them, turning everything gold. Adrian Vale stood by the fireplace, still dressed in black, reading a letter. He glanced up when she entered. "Miss Harrow, you made good time. Your carriage was very efficient. It's your carriage now, for your use." He set down the letter. "Tea?" Eliza blinked. What? "Tea. Henderson can bring it, or you can ring for it yourself later. Your choice." "I meant about the carriage. You'll need transportation. The carriage is at your disposal." Adrian moved to a side table where decanters sat gleaming. "Or there's brandy if you prefer something stronger. You look like you might need it." Eliza's mind was spinning. "Your Grace." "Adrian." "Excuse me?" "If you're living here, the formality becomes tedious. Adrian is fine." "That's highly inappropriate. So is most of this arrangement." He poured 2 glasses of brandy without waiting for her answer, crossing to hand her one. "Drink. You're pale." Eliza took the glass. The brandy burned going down, but settled her nerves slightly. Adrian watched her with that unsettling focus. "Your aunt took the news well, I assume?" "She slapped me and threw me out." "Expected." He sipped his own brandy. "Though the slapping was unnecessary, I'll make a note." "A note?" "For future reference." His tone was casual. "I don't appreciate violence against people under my protection." "I'm not—" Eliza stopped. "This is very strange." "Undoubtedly." Adrian gestured to a chair. "Sit. We should discuss logistics." Eliza sat because her legs felt unreliable. Adrian took the opposite chair, crossing one ankle over his knee with casual elegance. "You'll have the east wing," he said. 3 rooms, bedroom, sitting room, study. The study has good light for writing. Henderson will show you up after this conversation. 3 rooms. You'll need space to work. The sitting room has a desk, shelving for research materials, whatever you require. If something's missing, tell Henderson. He'll acquire it. Eliza stared at him. "Why are you doing this?" "I told you, I'm interested in your work." "That's not a real answer." Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then, "When I was 12, my father died. Suddenly. A writing accident." His voice remained even, factual. "The title passed to me. The fortune. The responsibility. I had tutors, advisors, an entire household managing my life. All of them had opinions about what I should do, who I should become." He paused, studying his brandy. "I had one friend, the stablemaster's son. He was brutally honest, told me when I was being an arrogant ass, argued with me, challenged my thinking." Adrian looked up. "He died when we were 17, fever. Since then, everyone around me either wants something or fears me too much, to be honest." "And you think I'll be honest with you?" "I think you have no reason to flatter me and too much pride to lie." His gaze was direct. "I think you'll tell me when my thinking is lazy or my logic flawed. That's worth considerably more than you realize." Eliza absorbed this. "So I'm a replacement for a dead friend. You're a writer who needs resources and a reader who values honesty. The transaction benefits us both. And if I fail, if my work isn't good enough, then you fail with a roof over your head and food in your stomach while you improve." Adrian set down his glass. "I'm not a charity, Miss Harrow, but I'm also not interested in watching potential get crushed by circumstance." "You don't know I have potential. I've read your books." "You do." He stood. "Henderson will show you to your rooms. Dinner is at 8 if you wish to join me. If not, tell the staff and they'll bring something up." "Wait," Eliza rose. "What are the rules?" Adrian turned back. "Rules? This arrangement. What are you expecting? What am I allowed to do? Where can I go?" "You're not a prisoner. Go where you like. Do what you like. Write when you're inspired." He paused. "The only expectation is that you let me read your work and accept critique. Everything else is your business." "That's it?" "That's it. No chaperone, no restrictions on my movements, no expectations of anything else?" Something cold flashed in Adrian's eyes. "I have no interest in coercing anyone into my bed, if that's your concern. If that situation ever arises, it will be because we both want it, clearly and explicitly. Until then, you're a resident with autonomy. Clear?" Clear. Good. He moved toward the door, then stopped. One more thing. Edmund Carver will likely call within the next few days, concerned for your welfare. How do you know that? Because he's predictable and genuinely decent. You'll need to decide how to handle him. Eliza's throat tightened. I'll tell him the truth. Which is? That I made a choice. My choice. Adrian nodded once. Henderson? The butler appeared instantly. Your Grace? Show Miss Harrow to her rooms. Make sure she has everything she needs. Of course, Your Grace. Adrian left without another word. Henderson gestured politely. This way, Miss Harrow. Eliza followed him through corridors that seemed endless, up a sweeping staircase, down another hallway lined with paintings and sculptures that probably cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. He stopped before a door. The east wing, miss. I took the liberty of having a fire lit and water brought up for washing. He opened the door. Eliza stepped inside and forgot to breathe. The bedroom was larger than the entire servants' wing at her aunt's house. A four-poster bed dominated one wall, dressed in blue silk. Windows overlooked the gardens. A wardrobe stood open, empty but waiting. The sitting room is through there, Henderson indicated another door. And your study beyond that. I'll have your trunk brought up momentarily. This is... Eliza couldn't finish. His Grace wanted you comfortable. Henderson's expression softened slightly. If you need anything, pull the bell cord. Someone will come immediately. He withdrew, closing the door quietly. Eliza stood alone in more space and luxury than she'd known in years, and finally let herself feel it. Not relief, not yet, but possibility. She crossed to the study door and pushed it open. The room was perfect. A desk by the windows, shelves already stocked with paper, ink, pens, good light, quiet. A place to write. Eliza sank into the desk chair and let out a breath she'd been holding for 3 years. Then she pulled out paper and began. 3 days passed in a strange, suspended reality. Eliza wrote. Mornings in her study, afternoon walks through the gardens when the words dried up, evenings reading in the library. Adrian appeared for dinner. They ate together in a formal dining room that felt absurd for 2 people and discussed literature, politics, philosophy. He was brilliant, brutally intelligent, and surprisingly easy to argue with. You're wrong, Eliza said on the 3rd evening, over dessert she still couldn't quite believe was hers to eat. Milton's Satan isn't sympathetic because he's misunderstood. He's sympathetic because he refuses to accept defeat. That's the same thing, Adrian countered. It's not. Misunderstanding implies error. Refusal implies choice. Semantics. Precision. Eliza leaned forward. Satan knows exactly what he's done and chooses to continue anyway. That's not confusion. That's conviction. Adrian's eyes gleamed. So you admire him. I understand him. There's a difference. Is there? He sipped his wine. Understanding requires empathy. Empathy requires shared experience. Are you suggesting I'm satanic? I'm suggesting you recognize the impulse toward defiance even when it's self-destructive. Eliza sat back. That's not a compliment. It wasn't meant to be. It's an observation. The conversation drifted to other topics, her current manuscript, his thoughts on recent political developments. Whether Shakespeare was overrated, Eliza said no, Adrian said yes. They argued for 20 minutes. It was the most stimulating dinner conversation Eliza had ever had. Afterward, Adrian walked her to the library, as had become their habit. He pulled a book from the shelf, a collection of essays, and handed it to her. Read the 3rd one. Tell me tomorrow why the author's wrong. Presumptuous. Accurate. He paused. You're settling in well. It wasn't a question, but Eliza answered anyway. Better than expected. Henderson says you've barely left your study. I'm writing. Good. Adrian moved toward the door, then stopped. Edmund Carver called this afternoon. I had Henderson tell him you were indisposed. Eliza's stomach clenched. He shouldn't have been turned away. You weren't ready to see him. That's not your decision to make. No, Adrian agreed. But you looked panicked when I mentioned it, so I made it anyway. He'll call again. You'll have to face him eventually. I know. Do you know what you'll say? Eliza looked down at the book in her hands. The truth. That I chose this. He won't understand. I know that too. Adrian studied her for a moment longer, then nodded and left. Eliza stood alone in the library, surrounded by books and silence, and knew he was right. Edmund came the next day. Eliza was writing when Henderson knocked softly. "Miss Harrow? Lord Carver is here to see you. Shall I tell him you're available?" She'd been expecting this, dreading it. "Give me 5 minutes, then show him to the drawing room." "Very good, miss." Eliza changed from her writing dress, comfortable but shabby, into something slightly more presentable. She checked her reflection in the mirror and saw a woman who looked healthier than she had in years, better fed, less haunted. Edmund would notice. She descended to find him pacing the drawing room, his face creased with worry. He spun when she entered. "Eliza, thank heavens." He crossed to her, hands outstretched, then stopped as if remembering propriety. "Are you all right? When I heard you'd left your aunt's house and come here—" "I'm fine, Edmund." "Are you?" He looked around the opulent room, then back at her. "Eliza, what's happening? Why are you living in the Duke of Vale's house?" "He offered me a place to work." I accepted. Edmund's face went through several expressions: confusion, disbelief, dawning horror. "To work?" "Eliza, people are saying—" He stopped, clearly struggling. "The rumors are terrible." "I imagine they are." "Then why are you here?" Eliza moved to a chair, gesturing for Edmund to sit. He did, perched on the edge like he might need to flee. "I'm here because I write," Eliza said quietly. "Novels, under a pen name. The Duke knows this and has offered me space and time to continue without interference." Edmund blinked. "You write novels?" "Published ones. E.H. Sterling. Perhaps you've heard of them." He looked completely lost. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because no one knows. Not my aunt. Not anyone. It was my secret." "But you told him." Edmund's voice rose slightly. "The Duke of Vale? A man known for being cold and calculating and honest," Eliza interrupted. "He's honest, Edmund. He doesn't pretend to care about things he doesn't. He doesn't make promises he can't keep. He offered me a transaction, residence for critique. That's all." "That's not all." Edmund stood, agitated. "Eliza, you're an unmarried woman living in an unmarried man's house. Your reputation—" "I have no reputation. We've established that repeatedly." "You could have." Edmund's face was flushed now. "If you'd married me, I would have suffocated." The words came out harsher than she intended. Edmund flinched. Eliza softened her voice. "Edmund, you're a good man, truly. But marriage to you would mean giving up the one thing I've built for myself. My work. My independence. You'd never understand why I need to write, and eventually you'd ask me to stop. For respectability. For propriety. For all the right reasons that would kill me slowly. I wouldn't—" "You would. Not maliciously, but you would." She met his eyes. "Here I can write, I can work. I can become something other than someone's wife or burden." "At what cost?" Edmund's voice broke. "Everyone will assume you're his mistress." "Let them assume." "Eliza, I've made my choice, Edmund." She stood. "I'm grateful for your concern, your friendship, but I'm staying." Edmund stared at her like she was a stranger. Then his expression hardened into something Eliza had never seen before. Anger. "You're making a terrible mistake." "Probably." "The Duke of Vale isn't offering you freedom. He's offering you a gilded cage." "Then it's my cage to accept." Edmund moved toward the door, then stopped. "When this falls apart, and it will, don't come to me for rescue." The word stung more than Eliza expected. "I won't." He left without another word. Eliza stood in the drawing room, listening to his footsteps fade, and felt something tear inside her chest. She'd just burned her last bridge. That evening, she found Adrian in the library. He looked up when she entered, took one look at her face, and poured a glass of brandy without asking. "Edmund didn't take it well," he said. "How did you know?" "Henderson mentioned raised voices." Adrian handed her the glass. "I assume he issued ultimatums." "Something like that." And I chose this." Eliza drank. "He thinks I'm ruined." "You are. Socially speaking." The blunt honesty was almost refreshing. Does that bother you? Adrian asked. I don't know yet. Eliza sank into a chair. Ask me in a month. Adrian returned to his own chair, studying her with that calculating gaze. Second thoughts? Dozens. None of them productive. Good. Good? Second thoughts mean you're thinking. Thinking means you'll write better. He paused. Show me what you've been working on. Eliza blinked. Now? Why not? She went to retrieve her manuscript, heart pounding. This was the transaction, the price for all of this. She returned with pages and handed them over. Adrian read in silence. Eliza watched his face, trying to gauge his reaction. His expression revealed nothing. Finally, he looked up. The opening is strong. The dialogue needs work. Your heroine is too passive in chapter 3. She's trapped in her circumstances. Then show me her fighting against them. Passivity isn't the same as helplessness. He tapped a page. Here. This scene where she accepts her fate. It's boring. It's realistic. Realism is overrated in fiction. I want to see her struggle, make mistakes, fight even when she knows she'll lose. Eliza felt her defenses rising. Not every character needs to be aggressive. No, but every character needs to want something and actively pursue it. Your heroine drifts. Adrian met her eyes. You don't drift? Why should she? The observation cut deeper than it should have. I'll revise it, Eliza said stiffly. Don't revise to please me. Revise to make it better. Adrian handed back the pages. But you're improving. The prose is sharper than your last book. That almost sounded like a compliment. It was an observation. Don't let it go to your head. Despite herself, Eliza smiled. You're terrible at encouragement. I'm not here to encourage you. I'm here to make you better. By tearing apart my work? By being honest about its flaws. Adrian leaned back. Flattery is useless. You need someone who'll tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, especially then. Eliza looked down at her manuscript, at all the places she knew were weak and had been avoiding fixing. You're right, she said quietly. About chapter 3. She needs to fight. Good. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the fire crackling, the room warm and book-lined and safe. Finally, Adrian spoke. You'll rebuild. Eventually. Not your social standing, that's gone. But something else. Something yours. You sound certain. I am. I've watched you for 3 days. You work like someone possessed. That kind of drive doesn't fail. He paused. Though it might destroy you in the process. Encouraging. Honest. Eliza met his eyes and found something unexpected there. Not pity, not desire, but recognition, like seeing a reflection in dark water. Why do you really care, she asked, about my work, about any of this? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, then, because talent wasted is a tragedy, and I'm tired of watching tragedies. It wasn't the whole answer, Eliza knew that, but it was enough for now. She stood, gathering her pages. I should go revise chapter 3. Eliza, she paused, you made the right choice coming here. How do you know? Because you're still fighting. Adrian's gaze held hers. That's more than most people manage. Eliza climbed the stairs to her study and wrote until dawn, tearing apart chapter 3 and rebuilding it with a heroine who refused to surrender. And somewhere in the process, she realized she wasn't just writing fiction anymore. She was writing survival. She was writing survival. The realization settled in her chest like a stone, heavy but solid, something to build on. Eliza stared at the revised pages scattered across her desk as dawn light crept through the windows, her hand cramping around the pen, ink staining her fingers black. Chapter 3 was better, stronger. Her heroine no longer accepted her fate. She clawed against it, made mistakes, bled for small victories that meant everything. It felt true in a way the original hadn't. A knock interrupted her thoughts. Henderson, perfectly composed despite the early hour. Miss Harrow, forgive the intrusion, but a letter has arrived for you. The messenger said it was urgent. Eliza took the envelope, recognizing the heavy cream paper immediately, her aunt's stationery. Thank you, Henderson. He withdrew silently. Eliza broke the seal with fingers that trembled slightly. The letter was short. Eliza, since you have chosen to disgrace yourself publicly, I am compelled to take steps to protect the family name. Your belongings, what little remains, will be donated to charity. Any correspondence sent to this address will be returned unopened. Consider all ties permanently severed. Furthermore, I have taken the liberty of informing your publisher of your current living arrangements. I trust they will make appropriate decisions regarding future contracts with someone of such questionable character. You are dead to me. GW. The paper slipped from Eliza's hands. Her publisher. Her aunt had contacted her publisher. The room tilted. Eliza grabbed the desk edge, breathing too fast. If her publisher dropped her, if they refused to print her work because of scandal, she had nothing. No income, no future, just Adrian's charity and her own foolish pride. She stood on shaking legs and went to find him. Adrian was in his study, already dressed despite the hour, reviewing what looked like estate documents. He glanced up when she entered without knocking. One look at her face and he set down his pen. What happened? Eliza handed him the letter. He read it in silence, his expression darkening with each line. When he finished, he set it down with deliberate care. Your aunt is a vicious piece of work. She contacted my publisher. Eliza's voice came out strangled. Adrian, if they drop me, they won't. You can't know that. I can. Adrian stood, moving around the desk. Because your publisher is Marcus Webb, and Marcus is more interested in profit than propriety. Your books sell. That's what matters to him. How do you know who my publisher is? I told you, I make it my business to know things. He studied her face. When did you last eat? What? Eat? Food? When? Eliza couldn't remember. Yesterday? The day before? Adrian moved to the door. Henderson? The butler appeared instantly. Breakfast for 2 in the morning room, immediately. Of course, Your Grace. Adrian turned back to Eliza. You're going to eat. Then you're going to write a letter to your publisher explaining your circumstances professionally and without apology. Then you're going to continue working because panic accomplishes nothing. I can't just... Yes, you can. His voice was firm. You can because the alternative is letting your aunt win, and I suspect you'd rather chew glass. Despite everything, Eliza felt a hysterical laugh bubble up. That's accurate. I know, Adrian gestured toward the door. Breakfast. Now. She followed him to the morning room where Henderson had somehow already laid out a full meal. Eggs, toast, preserves, tea. Eliza sat and picked at her plate while Adrian ate with methodical efficiency. Your aunt made a mistake, he said after a few minutes. How so? She's shown her hand, revealed exactly how threatened she is by your independence. Adrian set down his fork. People who feel secure don't lash out. They ignore. Your aunt is scared. Of what? I'm nobody. You were nobody when you lived in her house and accepted her abuse. Now you're someone who walked away. That's terrifying to people like her. Eliza absorbed this. It doesn't change my situation. No, but it clarifies it. Adrian leaned back. Your aunt wants you to fail, to come crawling back. The best revenge is succeeding anyway. Easy to say when you're a duke. Is it? Something cold flickered in his expression. You think my position makes me immune to people trying to destroy me? I think it makes you considerably more protected. Protected, not immune. Adrian's jaw tightened. I've had 3 attempts to sabotage my business interests in the last year alone. 2 former friends who tried to use forged documents to claim I owed them money. A cousin who spread rumors that I was unstable, trying to have me declared incompetent so he could claim the title. Eliza stared. What happened? I destroyed them. His voice was matter of fact. Systematically, professionally. Because showing weakness invites more attacks. That's not the same as my situation. Isn't it? Your aunt is attacking your livelihood, your reputation, your ability to survive independently. Adrian met her eyes. The tactics are different. The intent is identical. Eliza pushed eggs around her plate. So what do I do? Write the letter. Continue your work. Refuse to engage with her provocations. He paused. And accept that some battles are won by simply outlasting your opponent. That's not very satisfying. No, but it's effective. They finished breakfast in silence. Afterward, Adrian walked her to the library and pulled out paper and ink. Right, he said. I'll review it before you send it. Eliza sat at the desk and stared at the blank page. Dear Mr. Webb, she began. I write to address any concerns you may have received regarding my current circumstances. Recent changes in my living situation have prompted speculation which I trust will not affect our professional relationship. I remain committed to producing quality work and meeting all contractual obligations. My next manuscript is progressing well and will be delivered on schedule. Please advise if you require any clarification. Respectfully, E. H. Sterling. She handed it to Adrian. He read it, made 2 small corrections, and nodded. Send it. That's it? That's it. Professional, unapologetic, focused on work. Adrian handed it back. The more you justify or explain, the guiltier you appear. This says everything necessary and nothing more. Eliza sealed the letter with wax that felt like setting something in stone. Henderson arranged for its delivery. Then Eliza returned to her study and tried to write. The words wouldn't come. She sat at her desk, pen poised, mind blank. The fear kept circling back. What if her publisher dropped her anyway? What if the scandal was too much? What if she'd destroyed everything for nothing? By afternoon, she'd written 3 sentences and crossed out 2 of them. A knock. Henderson again. Miss Harrow, you have a visitor. Eliza's heart jumped. Who? A Miss Charlotte Winters. She says you were acquainted before your recent difficulties. Charlotte. They'd been friends years ago, before Eliza's father died, before everything fell apart. Eliza hadn't seen her since. Show her to the drawing room. I'll be down in 5 minutes. Eliza changed quickly into something presentable and descended to find Charlotte standing by the windows, examining the gardens. She turned when Eliza entered. Charlotte Winters had always been beautiful. Golden hair, bright blue eyes, the kind of face that made people want to please her. Today she wore lavender silk and an expression of careful concern. Eliza, she crossed the room, hands outstretched. I had to come see for myself. The rumors, are you truly all right? I'm fine, Charlotte. Are you? Charlotte's gaze swept the room, taking in the opulence. Because people are saying terrible things. People always say terrible things. Yes, but these are particularly awful. That you're living here as the Duke's... Charlotte stopped, color rising in her cheeks. Well, you know what they're saying. I can imagine. It's not true, is it? Eliza, tell me it's not true. Eliza moved to the tea service Henderson had thoughtfully prepared. I'm living here as a guest. The Duke is allowing me time and space to work on my writing. Charlotte's perfect face registered confusion. You're writing? I'm a novelist. Published. It's how I've been supporting myself. You... what? Charlotte sank into a chair. How long has this been happening? 3 years. 3 years and you never told me? We haven't exactly been close recently, Charlotte. The barb landed. Charlotte flinched. That wasn't my fault. Your aunt made it clear you weren't to be associated with. I couldn't risk your reputation. I know. Eliza poured tea with steady hands. I don't blame you. Don't you? Charlotte's voice turned sharp. You sound like you blame me very much. I'm stating facts. You chose your social standing over our friendship. That was your right. And now you're choosing scandal over decency? Eliza set down the teapot harder than necessary. Is that why you're here? To lecture me about decency? I'm here because I'm worried about you. Charlotte stood, agitated. Eliza, you can't stay here. It's social suicide. Even if nothing inappropriate is happening, the appearance is all anyone cares about, isn't it? Eliza's voice rose. Not the truth. Not whether I'm happy or safe or able to work. Just how it looks to people who've already decided I'm worthless. That's not fair, isn't it? Where were you when my aunt was humiliating me publicly? When I was living in a servant's room and going hungry? When I needed friends? Eliza's hands shook. You were protecting your reputation just like everyone else. Charlotte's face crumpled. I wanted to help, I did, but my mother said, your mother, your aunt, society. Everyone had opinions about what I should accept. Eliza moved toward her. But no one offered me what the Duke did. Actual space to exist, to work, to build something. At what cost? That's my concern. Is it? Charlotte's eyes were wet. Or will it become everyone's concern when this arrangement falls apart and you're left with nothing but a ruined name? Then I'll deal with it, but it will be my failure. My choice. Charlotte stared at her like she was a stranger. You've changed. I've had to. This isn't you, Eliza. This reckless, defiant, this is exactly me. It's just the first time I've had the freedom to show it. Charlotte pulled on her gloves with jerky movements. I came here to help, to offer you a way out. My aunt knows a respectable family in the country who needs a governess. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. And no. Eliza. No, I'm not running away to become a governess because it's respectable. Eliza's voice hardened. I'm staying here. I'm writing. I'm building a life on my terms. Then you're a fool. Charlotte moved toward the door. And when this falls apart, don't come to me for help. The second person to say that in as many days. Charlotte left without looking back. Eliza stood alone in the drawing room, shaking with fury and something that felt dangerously close to grief. She returned to her study and wrote furiously for 3 hours, channeling everything into the manuscript. Anger, fear, defiance, all of it poured onto the page. By the time Adrian knocked, she had 10 new pages. Productive afternoon? He asked, entering without waiting for permission. Charlotte Winters visited. I heard. Henderson mentioned raised voices. She offered me a position as a governess, said I was being a fool. Adrian moved to read over her shoulder, scanning the new pages. She's not entirely wrong. Eliza spun in her chair to say, Excuse me? This is foolish. Accepting help from someone you barely know, burning every bridge, risking everything on the possibility that your writing will sustain you. He looked up. It's objectively reckless. Then why are you helping me? Because reckless doesn't mean wrong. Adrian set down the pages. And because watching you play it safe would be boring. Despite everything, Eliza laughed. You're terrible. I'm honest. He paused. Your publisher responded. Eliza's stomach dropped. And? Adrian pulled a letter from his pocket. See for yourself. Eliza took it with trembling hands. Dear Miss Sterling, thank you for your letter. I appreciate your professionalism in addressing recent speculation. I want to assure you that our relationship is based solely on the quality of your work, which continues to meet our standards. Your books sell well. That is what matters to me. I look forward to receiving your next manuscript on schedule. Regards, Marcus Webb. Relief hit so hard, Eliza had to sit down. Told you, Adrian said. You did. Eliza looked up at him. Thank you. For being right. I'm frequently right. You'll get used to it. He moved toward the door, then stopped. Eliza? Yes? You wrote 10 pages in 3 hours. Angry, raw, honest pages. His gaze was serious. That's the best work you've done since arriving. Don't lose that edge trying to be palatable. He left before she could respond. Eliza looked at her manuscript, messy, crossed out in places, full of raw emotion, and realized he was right. She'd been trying to write something good. She needed to write something true. The next week passed in a blur of work. Eliza wrote every morning, revised every afternoon, argued with Adrian every evening over dinner. He was merciless in his critique, tearing apart weak sentences, questioning motivations, demanding clarity. It was exhausting. It was exactly what she needed. This scene. Adrian tapped a page during their 5th evening session. Your heroine makes a decision that changes everything, but I don't believe it. Why not? Because you haven't shown me her desperation, her absolute lack of alternatives. He looked up. Dramatic decisions need dramatic circumstances. Otherwise, they're just arbitrary. She's trapped. What more do you want? Show me the trap closing. Make me feel her panic. Adrian handed back the pages. Right now, she's making a calculated choice. That's not interesting. I want to see her backed into a corner with no good options, choosing the least terrible one. Eliza stared at the pages. That's darker than I intended. Good stories are dark. They have to be. He paused. Unless you're writing fairy tales. I'm not. Then stop protecting your characters. Let them suffer. Eliza rewrote the scene that night, making it worse, harder, more desperate. When she showed Adrian the revision the next day, he nodded once. Better. Much better. It was the closest thing to praise he'd given. 3 days later, everything changed. Eliza was in the library when Henderson entered, his usual composure slightly ruffled. Miss Harrow, Lady Whitmore is here. Eliza's blood froze. What? Your aunt. She's in the entrance hall and refuses to leave until she speaks with you. I don't want to see her. I explained that, miss. She was insistent. Before Eliza could respond, voices erupted from the hallway, one shrill and familiar, the other Adrian's, cold and cutting. Eliza moved toward the door. Her aunt stood in the marble entrance hall, dressed in black silk like she was attending a funeral, her face twisted with fury. Adrian blocked her path, arms crossed, expression glacial. Repeatedly told you Miss Harrow doesn't wish to see you, Adrian was saying. I don't care what that ungrateful wretch wishes. Lady Whitmore's voice echoed off marble. She's my niece, my responsibility. She's an adult, not your property. She's living under your roof like a common whore. The words cracked through the hall like a whip. Adrian's expression went deadly. You need to leave now. Not until I speak with her. Lady Whitmore spotted Eliza on the stairs. There you are. Do you see what you've done? The scandal? The gossip? Eliza descended slowly. I see that you're trespassing. Trespassing? You dare? Her aunt's face went purple. I came to give you one final chance. Come home. Apologize. Behave properly. I might forgive this madness. No. No? Lady Whitmore laughed, shrill. You think you have a choice? You think this will last? He'll tire of you, girl. They always do. Then where will you be? That's enough. Adrian's voice cut through like a blade. I'm not finished. Yes, you are. Adrian moved forward, his presence suddenly dominating the space. You will leave my house immediately, or I will have you physically removed. You wouldn't dare. Try me. The two stared at each other. Lady Whitmore looked away first. She turned to Eliza, her expression twisting into something uglier. You've made your choice. Live with it, but don't expect mercy when this falls apart. She swept toward the door, then stopped, turning back with a vicious smile. Oh, and Eliza, I made sure everyone knows. Everyone. Your precious publisher, your former friends, every person who might have helped you. Her smile widened. You're alone, completely alone, and when he's finished with you, you'll have nothing. She left in a rustle of black silk and malice. The door closed. Silence settled like snow. Eliza stood frozen on the stairs, her aunt's words echoing. You're alone. Completely alone. She's wrong, Adrian said quietly. Eliza looked at him. You're not alone. Something in his voice made her chest ache. Adrian, I need to tell you something. He moved closer, his expression unreadable. About why I'm really helping you. Eliza's heart hammered. What? Sit down. I don't want to sit down. Just tell me. Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then, 5 years ago, I was engaged. Sophia, daughter of an earl. Beautiful, charming, everything society said I should want. Eliza waited. Turned out she was sleeping with my cousin, planning to marry me for the title while continuing the affair. His voice remained even, but something sharp lived underneath. I discovered it 2 weeks before the wedding, ended the engagement. She spread rumors that I was cruel, controlling, unstable. Half of society believed her. Adrian, I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you because I understand what it's like to be destroyed by someone who's supposed to care about you. He met her eyes. Your aunt is doing the same thing, systematically cutting off every avenue of escape, every possibility of support, until you have no choice but to crawl back. I won't. I know. That's why I'm helping. He paused. But you need to understand something. This is going to get worse before it gets better. Your aunt won't stop. She'll escalate, and everyone who wants to curry favor with her will help. I don't care. You should, because when this house becomes the only place you're safe, you'll start to depend on it, on me. And dependence is its own kind of trap. Eliza stared at him. Are you warning me away? I'm being honest about what this costs. Adrian's gaze was direct. You came here for independence. I want you to keep it, but that means being aware of the danger. What danger? That you'll start to need me, that this arrangement will shift from professional to personal, that lines will blur. Eliza's breath caught. And if they do? Adrian stepped closer. Then we'll both have to decide what we're willing to risk. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Adrian, a crash from upstairs shattered the moment. They both turned as a maid came running down the stairs, face pale. Your Grace! Miss Harrow's room, someone's destroyed it. Eliza ran. Her bedroom was carnage, the mattress slashed open, feathers everywhere. Her wardrobe ransacked, dresses torn, the desk overturned. Her manuscripts, every page, every chapter, every word she'd written, shredded into pieces across the floor like snow. 3 years of work, gone. Eliza stood in the doorway, unable to breathe. No. The word came out strangled. No, no, no! She fell to her knees, grabbing at torn pages, trying to piece them together, ink smeared, words illegible. Everything destroyed. Adrian crouched beside her. Eliza, she did this. Eliza's voice shook. My aunt, she did this. We don't know. Who else would? Eliza looked at the destruction, at her ruined work, at 3 years of survival turned to garbage. She destroyed everything. Adrian's jaw clenched. Henderson! The butler appeared, his face gray. Find out who entered this room. Question every servant. Search every inch of this house. Adrian's voice was steel. Now! Henderson left quickly. Eliza kept gathering pages, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold them. I can't rewrite this. I don't remember. Some of these chapters, I don't remember how they went. We'll figure it out. How? She looked up at him, tears finally breaking through. How do I figure out something that's gone? Adrian pulled her to her feet, his hands firm on her shoulders. Because you're a writer. You rebuild. It's what you do. I can't. Yes, you can. His grip tightened. You've survived worse than this. Have I? Eliza's voice cracked. Because right now it feels like she's won. She hasn't, not unless you let her. Eliza stared at him through tears. At this cold, calculating man who somehow believed in her more than she believed in herself. I don't know if I can do this, she whispered. You can. Adrian's voice was absolute. Because the alternative is giving up. And I don't think you know how to do that. He was right. Eliza looked at the destroyed room, at her shredded work, at the evidence of her aunt's hatred, and felt something harden inside her chest. Not surrender, not defeat, rage. Pure, cold, focused rage. Find who did this, she said quietly. I will. And then? Eliza met Adrian's eyes. Then I want to destroy her the way she tried to destroy me. Something flickered in Adrian's expression. Recognition. Maybe respect. Careful, he said. That kind of revenge changes you. Good. Eliza's voice was steel. I'm tired of being the victim. Adrian studied her face for a long moment, then nodded once. All right, then we do this properly. Properly? We don't just survive. His eyes were cold fire. We win. The study felt different when she returned to it after 3 weeks away. Smaller somehow, though nothing had changed. Eliza set down her travel bag and moved to the window, looking out over the winter gardens she'd come to know like the lines of her own palm. She'd survived. That was something. The manuscript for her 4th novel sat on her desk where she'd left it, half finished and waiting. Eliza touched the pages, then turned away. Not yet. First she needed to write Adrian the letter she'd been composing in her head for 300 miles. She pulled out fresh paper and started 4 times before the words came right. Adrian, I'm back at Vale House. The cottage served its purpose, but I finished what I needed to finish there. I'm ready to continue our work. Also, and this is harder to write, thank you for the space, the silence, the trust that I would return. You were right about isolation clarifying things. I know what I want now, E. She sealed it before she could second-guess the last line and went to find Henderson. The butler materialized in the hallway as if summoned by thought. Miss Harrow, welcome back. Shall I have tea sent up? Please, and Henderson, is the Duke in residence? He returned from London yesterday, currently in his study. Henderson's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his eyes. He's been concerned. Concerned? You were gone longer than expected, miss. Eliza absorbed this. 3 weeks instead of 2. She'd lost track of time in the cottage, writing like someone possessed, only stopping when her hands cramped too badly to continue. Will you give him this? She handed over the letter. I'll be in my study. Of course. Eliza climbed the stairs to her rooms and found them exactly as she'd left them, fire laid but unlit, fresh flowers on the writing desk, her books stacked neatly. Henderson's work, maintaining her space even in her absence. She lit the fire herself, kneading the small ritual, then pulled out the new manuscript, 120,000 words, written in 3 weeks of isolation and obsession. The story of a woman who loses everything and builds something new from the wreckage, not by being saved, but by refusing to be broken. It was the best thing she'd ever written, also the most terrifying, because it was true. Not the plot, that was fiction, but the emotional core, the anger and defiance and desperate hope that powered every page. She'd bled onto this manuscript in ways that made her previous work look like practice sketches. Adrian would see that immediately, would recognize what she'd done. The thought made her stomach twist. A knock interrupted her spiral. Come in. Henderson entered with a tea tray. His Grace requests your presence in the library at your convenience, miss. Now is convenient. She descended to find Adrian standing by the fire, her letter in his hand. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression made her breath catch. You're back? I said I would be. 3 weeks instead of 2. I lost track of time. Adrian set down the letter carefully. Henderson was ready to send search parties. I convinced him to wait 1 more day. Were you worried? Yes. Simple, direct. You could have written. I was writing. To me, Eliza. The use of her first name stopped her. They'd maintained formality despite months of living under the same roof, despite dinners and debates, and the strange intimacy of sharing work. First names felt like crossing a line neither had acknowledged existed. I'm sorry, she said. I should have sent word. Adrian moved closer, studying her face with that unsettling focus. You look terrible. Thank you. I mean it. When did you last sleep properly? Eat a full meal? I've been working. That's not an answer. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Tell me about it. Eliza sat because her legs felt unreliable. Adrian took the opposite chair, waiting. I finished it, she said. The novel. It's done. In 3 weeks. I couldn't stop. Every time I tried to rest, the words kept coming. Like if I didn't get them out, they'd suffocate me. She looked down at her hands, ink-stained and shaking slightly. It's different from everything else I've written. Different how? Truer. Adrian was silent for a moment. May I read it? This was the transaction, the price, the thing she'd agreed to. But suddenly it felt like handing over pieces of her soul for dissection. It's not polished yet, Eliza hedged. Needs revision. Eliza. She met his eyes. I've read your rough drafts before, Adrian said quietly. You know I won't be gentle. So what's really stopping you? Everything. Nothing. The fear that he'd see too much, that the manuscript would reveal things she couldn't say out loud, that his critique would shatter the fragile things she'd built. It's personal, she managed. All good writing is personal. This is different. Adrian leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Then keep it to yourself. I won't force you to share something you're not ready to expose. The unexpected grace of that statement made her eyes sting. But, Eliza asked, hearing the unspoken word, but hiding it won't make you feel safer, just lonelier. His gaze held hers. Your choice. Eliza stood abruptly. I'll get it. She returned minutes later with the manuscript, pages still smelling of ink and desperation. Adrian took it with careful hands. How long do you need? Eliza asked. Come back tomorrow evening. We'll discuss it then. She left him in the library and spent the next 24 hours in agony. The following evening arrived with excruciating slowness. Eliza dressed carefully, her best gown, hair properly arranged, armor of presentation, and descended to the library at precisely 8 o'clock. Adrian sat in his usual chair, the manuscript on the table beside him. His expression gave nothing away. Eliza sat, waited. It's extraordinary, Adrian said finally. Her breath stopped. The prose is sharp, the pacing relentless, Your heroine, he paused. She's real in ways your previous characters weren't. Flawed, angry, magnificent. But there was always a but. But you're going to have trouble selling it. Eliza's stomach dropped. Why? Because it's too honest, too raw. Your heroine doesn't soften her edges for anyone. She doesn't apologize for surviving. She doesn't learn to be grateful for scraps. Adrian met her eyes. She demands respect and takes what she's owed. Publishers will call her unlikable. She's a woman who refuses to be crushed. Why is that unlikable? Because it's threatening. Adrian's voice was matter of fact. Women in novels are supposed to be gentle, forgiving, self-sacrificing. Your heroine is none of those things. Good. I agree. But the publishing industry won't. He leaned back. You'll need to fight for this. Find a publisher willing to take a risk. Prepare for rejection, possibly lots of it. Eliza's hands clenched in her lap. So I should soften her? Make her more palatable? Absolutely not. Adrian's voice turned sharp. You should publish exactly what you've written. Let them reject it. Keep submitting until you find someone with enough intelligence to recognize what they're being offered. That could take years. Probably. I might never sell it. Possibly. Adrian picked up the manuscript, holding it out to her. But you'll have written the truth. That's worth more than any publisher's approval. Eliza took the pages, clutching them like a lifeline. You really think it's good? I think it's the best thing you've done. I also think it will make people uncomfortable, which means it's important. He paused. When you submit it, use your real name. Eliza's head snapped up. What? E.H. Sterling has modest success, but this deserves more. Put your actual name on it. That's insane. If I use my real name, everyone will know that you write, that you're talented, that you have something to say. Adrian's gaze was steady. You've been hiding behind initials because you were afraid. You don't need to be afraid anymore. I'm not afraid. Liar. The word hung between them. Eliza set down the manuscript with shaking hands. If I use my real name, my aunt will know. Society will know. They'll tear me apart. They're already tearing you apart. At least this way, you'll give them something real to criticize instead of invented scandal. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's terrifying. Adrian stood, moving to pour 2 glasses of brandy. But you've already survived the worst they can do. What's left to fear? He handed her a glass. Eliza drank, the burn steadying her. When did you become someone who gives inspirational speeches? She asked. I don't give inspirational speeches. I state facts. But something almost like a smile flickered across his face. Though if you tell anyone I'm encouraging, I'll deny it. Your reputation as a cold, calculating bastard is safe. Good. They drank in comfortable silence. Then Adrian spoke again, his voice careful. While you were gone, something happened. Eliza looked up. Your 3rd novel, the one published 6 months ago, has been selling unusually well. Your publisher wrote asking for your next manuscript. He paused. They're offering a contract, 3 books, better terms than before. Eliza's heart stuttered. How much better? £60 per book. The room tilted. £60. Times 3. £180 total. That was freedom. Real freedom. The kind that meant independence, security, a future built on her own work. I don't understand, Eliza managed. Why the sudden interest? Your books are being discussed, recommended. A few influential readers have taken notice. Adrian set down his glass. You're becoming recognized, Eliza. Not as a novelty, as a writer. The words felt impossible. I assume you're accepting the contract, Adrian asked. Yes, of course. But Eliza's mind raced. With my real name? That's your decision. Eliza stood pacing to the window. Outside, winter had turned the garden silver with frost. Beautiful and harsh and real. She thought about the girl who'd arrived here 6 months ago, half-starved, desperate, willing to accept any shelter that didn't demand her soul. That girl had been afraid of everything. This version of herself was tired of fear. Yes, she said, turning back. My real name, Eliza Harrow. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. Pride, maybe, or satisfaction. Good. I'll have Henderson send the reply tomorrow. Adrian, Eliza crossed back to him. Why are you doing this, all of this? The critique, the support, the... She gestured at the room, the house, everything. What do you actually want from me? He was silent for a long moment, then, to see what you become. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Adrian's voice went quiet. I spent years being what I was supposed to be, dutiful, proper, cold. It nearly killed me. Then I decided to stop pretending, to build something on my own terms, consequences be damned. He looked at her directly. You're doing the same thing. I want to watch where it takes you. The honesty of that statement stole her breath. And if I fail? Eliza asked. Then you fail spectacularly and start again. Adrian moved closer. But I don't think you will. You're too stubborn. Is that a compliment? It's an observation. They stood there in the firelight, something unspoken building between them. Not desire, or not just desire. Something more complicated. Recognition and respect and a connection neither seemed willing to name. Eliza broke first, stepping back. I should go revise. If I'm submitting with my real name, the manuscript needs to be perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. As close as I can make it, then. She gathered her pages and moved toward the door. Eliza. She paused. I'm glad you came back, Adrian said quietly. Where else would I go? Anywhere. That's the point. His gaze was steady. You chose to return. Eliza held his eyes for a moment longer, then fled to her study before she could say something dangerous. Over the next 3 weeks, Eliza revised the manuscript until her eyes burned and her hand cramped. Adrian read each version with brutal honesty, pointing out every weak passage, every moment where she'd pulled her punches. Here, he said one evening, marking a page. This scene where she confronts her enemy, you have her walk away. She's being mature. She's being boring. Have her fight back. Make it messy. That's not realistic. Fiction isn't realistic. It's truth distilled into drama. Give me the fight. Eliza rewrote the scene, then rewrote it again. By the third version, her heroine drew blood with words sharp enough to scar. Adrian read it and smiled. Actually smiled. Better. Much better. The final manuscript went to the publisher on a gray morning in late February. Henderson himself delivered it. The pages bound carefully, Eliza's real name on the title page. Then came the waiting. Eliza tried to write something new but couldn't focus. She walked the gardens until Henderson worried about her catching cold. She read everything in the library that wasn't directly about writing. Adrian tolerated her restlessness with surprising patience. Stop pacing, he said one evening, not looking up from his own correspondence. You're making the servants nervous. How long does it usually take to hear back? Weeks, sometimes months. That's unacceptable. That's publishing. Eliza dropped into a chair with undignified force. I hate this, the waiting, the not knowing. Then find something productive to do with the anxiety. Like what? Adrian finally looked up. There's a literary salon next week. Lady Pemberton hosts it monthly. You should attend. Eliza stared at him. You're joking. I don't joke about literature. Lady Pemberton is one of my aunt's closest friends. She'd throw me out the moment I arrived. Probably. Adrian's expression remained neutral. But you're also E.H. Sterling. Your books are being discussed in those circles, even if they don't know the author's identity yet. Walk in and claim your place. That's insane. It's strategic. He set down his pen. You can keep hiding, or you can start being seen. Your choice. The challenge was clear. Eliza spent the next 5 days terrified and furious in equal measure. But when the evening of the salon arrived, she dressed in her finest gown, deep burgundy silk that Adrian had insisted Henderson acquire, over Eliza's protests about the expense, and climbed into the carriage. Adrian accompanied her, which was both reassuring and terrifying. You don't have to come, Eliza said as they rolled through London streets. Someone needs to prevent bloodshed. I'm not going to stab anyone. I was referring to what they might do to you. Adrian's tone was dry. Though your stabbing someone would certainly liven up the evening. Despite her nerves, Eliza smiled. Lady Pemberton's townhouse blazed with lights. The salon was already in full swing when they arrived. The drawing room packed with London's literary elite, or at least those who fancied themselves such. The butler announced them. His Grace, the Duke of Vale, Miss Eliza Harrow. The room didn't exactly fall silent, but conversations died in visible ripples. Eliza felt every eye turn toward them, saw recognition, shock, calculation. Lady Pemberton stood near the fireplace, her face going through several expressions before settling on icy politeness. Your Grace, what an unexpected pleasure. Lady Pemberton, Adrian's voice was cool. I trust you don't mind the intrusion. Miss Harrow expressed interest in your salon. Did she? Not a question. Lady Pemberton's gaze raked over Eliza. How ambitious. Eliza lifted her chin. I appreciate literature. I thought this might be educational. Educational. Lady Pemberton's smile could have cut glass. Well, you're here now. Do try not to embarrass yourself. Adrian's hand settled at Eliza's back. Not possessive, just present. Supporting. They moved into the room. People shifted away like water from oil. Eliza recognized faces from her aunt's gatherings, saw the same contempt thinly veiled as politeness. A cluster of women near the window whispered loudly enough to carry. Living in his house, completely shameless. What else could she be but his mistress? Pretending to have literary interests? The presumption. Eliza's jaw tightened. Adrian's hand pressed slightly firmer against her back. Ignore them, he murmured. Difficult when they're not even trying to be subtle. Then give them something real to whisper about. Before Eliza could ask what he meant, a man detached from a group near the bookshelves and approached. He was middle-aged, scholarly-looking, with ink-stained fingers and intelligent eyes. Your Grace, and you must be Miss Harrow. He bowed slightly. Thomas Whitmore. No relation to your charming aunt, I assure you. I'm with Blackwood's Publishing. Eliza's heart stopped. Blackwood's was one of London's most respected publishers. Mr. Whitmore, she managed. I was hoping to meet you eventually. Your work is causing quite a stir in certain circles. The room had gone genuinely quiet now. My work? Eliza kept her voice steady. Indeed. E.H. Sterling. Excellent prose, fascinating character studies. Whitmore's eyes gleamed, though I confess I didn't realize Sterling was a woman until His Grace's publisher mentioned it in passing last week. Every eye in the room locked onto Eliza. She could feel the shock rippling outward. E.H. Sterling, whose novels were being discussed by serious readers, was this woman? The penniless nobody living in scandal? Lady Pemberton's face had gone white. You're E.H. Sterling? Someone asked, voice sharp with disbelief. I am, Eliza said clearly. Impossible. Those books show real literary merit. Thank you, I think. Adrian's hand left her back. He was smiling slightly, watching the room's reaction with satisfaction. Whitmore continued as if uninterrupted. I've been hoping to discuss your next manuscript. Rumor has it you're working on something new. I've just submitted it to my current publisher. Ah, pity. I would have been very interested. He pulled a card from his pocket. If you ever consider changing publishers, I hope you'll speak with me first. Blackwood's values ambitious work. Eliza took the card with shaking fingers. Thank you. Whitmore nodded to Adrian and moved away, leaving silence in his wake. Then the room exploded into whispers. Eliza stood very still, feeling the weight of attention shift. Not all of it was hostile now. Some faces showed curiosity, interest. A few even looked impressed. Lady Pemberton recovered first. Well, this is certainly unexpected, though I suppose we shouldn't be surprised that His Grace would harbor a writer. The pause before writer made it sound obscene. Indeed, Adrian said coolly. Miss Harrow's talent is remarkable, unlike most of the dilettantes who claim literary interests without producing anything of value. The insult was so precisely aimed that several people flinched. Lady Pemberton's smile turned venomous. How generous of you to say so, Your Grace. Though one does wonder about the nature of Miss Harrow's inspiration, living in such close proximity to a man of your experience. The implication was clear and ugly. Eliza felt rage build in her chest. But before she could respond, another voice cut through the tension. Actually, I'm curious about that as well. A woman emerged from the crowd, elegant, older, with sharp eyes and an amused expression. Eliza didn't recognize her, but several people stepped back respectfully. Lady Catherine Ashford, Adrian murmured, the Earl's widow. Her opinion actually matters. Lady Catherine moved to stand beside Eliza, examining her with interest. You're E.H. Sterling. You wrote that novel about the governess who becomes a revolutionary. Brilliant work. Kept me up all night. Thank you, Eliza said, still reeling. And you live at Vale House, writing under His Grace's patronage. Lady Catherine's tone was thoughtful, not accusatory. That takes considerable courage. Most women would choose the safety of marriage over the uncertainty of art. Most women aren't given the choice, Eliza said quietly. True, Lady Catherine smiled. I like you. You don't apologize for existing. Refreshing. She turned to address the room. I think we should discuss Miss Harrow's work rather than her living arrangements, don't you? Unless literary merit has become less important than gossip. The rebuke was gentle but unmistakable. Lady Pemberton opened her mouth, then closed it. Excellent, Lady Catherine said. Miss Harrow, perhaps you'd share your thoughts on the current state of serialized fiction. I found your critique in last month's literary review quite insightful. Eliza blinked. That was published anonymously. Anonymously, but not invisibly. I make it my business to know who's saying interesting things. Lady Catherine gestured to a chair. Please, educate these people. For the next hour, Eliza found herself at the center of an actual literary discussion. Not everyone was friendly. Some remained hostile, others merely suspicious. But Lady Catherine's endorsement had shifted the dynamic enough that people engaged with her ideas rather than dismissing her outright. Adrian watched from the sidelines, saying little, but his presence alone seemed to keep the worst impulses in check. When they finally left, well past midnight, Eliza felt wrung out and strangely exhilarated. That was terrifying, she said as the carriage pulled away. You were magnificent. I nearly started 3 different fights. But you didn't. You engaged intellectually instead. Much more devastating. Adrian looked at her with something like pride. Lady Catherine's endorsement will open doors. She's one of the few people in London whose opinion actually shapes literary reputation. Why did she help me? Because she recognized quality, and because she enjoys making the establishment uncomfortable. He paused. Also, I may have sent her advance copies of your manuscripts months ago. Eliza stared at him. You what? I wanted a second opinion from someone whose judgment I trust. Lady Catherine has exquisite taste. You manipulated this entire evening. I created an opportunity. You seized it. Adrian's expression remained neutral. There's a difference. Eliza wanted to be angry but couldn't quite manage it. Instead, she started laughing, the kind that came from exhausted relief and residual terror. You're devious. I'm practical. Same thing. They rode in comfortable silence until Eliza spoke again, more seriously. Thank you for coming, for standing there like a barrier between me and them. You didn't need a barrier, but I wanted them to know there would be consequences if they crossed certain lines. Adrian met her eyes. You're under my protection, Eliza. That means something. The weight of that statement settled over them. What if they're right? Eliza asked quietly. About me being your mistress. About this all being some elaborate arrangement for your entertainment. Are they right? No, but that doesn't stop the accusations. Let them accuse. Adrian's voice was steady. We know the truth. That's what matters. But Eliza wasn't sure it was the whole truth anymore. Because somewhere in the past months, Adrian had become more than a patron or critic or the man providing sanctuary. He'd become essential, and that was infinitely more dangerous than any scandal. The letter from her publisher arrived 2 weeks later. Henderson brought it to her study, where Eliza had been pretending to work on a new project but mostly staring at blank pages. She recognized the seal and nearly dropped it. Would you like me to stay, miss? Henderson asked gently. No, thank you. I need to read this alone. He withdrew. Eliza stared at the envelope for a full minute before breaking the seal. The letter was brief, professional, and completely devastating. They loved the manuscript, wanted to publish it immediately, were offering terms that made her previous contract look like pocket change. £100 advance, royalties on sales beyond the first printing, a commitment to promote it as a major release, and at the bottom, a single line that made her vision blur. We believe this will establish you as one of the premier voices in contemporary fiction. It's an honor to publish your work, Miss Harrow. Eliza sat very still, the letter trembling in her hands. Then she stood, left her study, and went to find Adrian. He was in the library, reading correspondence. He looked up when she entered and immediately set everything aside. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Eliza crossed to him and held out the letter. "They want it. They want to publish it." Adrian took the letter, read it quickly, and something extraordinary happened. He smiled, genuinely smiled. Not the slight quirk of lips he sometimes allowed, but an actual expression of unguarded pleasure. "Eliza, this is—" He stopped, seeming to search for words. "This is remarkable. I can't believe it." "I can." Adrian stood, still holding the letter. "You wrote something extraordinary. They recognized it. This is exactly what should happen." Eliza felt tears start and tried to stop them. Failed. Adrian noticed immediately. "Why are you crying?" "Because 6 months ago I was eating stolen bread in my aunt's house and writing by candlelight because I couldn't afford lamp oil. And now—" Her voice broke. "Now people want to read my words, pay for them, treat them like they matter." "They do matter." "I know. Eliza wiped her eyes roughly. "I didn't think I'd get here. Ever." Adrian set down the letter and did something he'd never done before. He pulled her into an embrace. It wasn't romantic, wasn't calculated, just a solid, grounding presence that said without words, "You did this. You earned this. I'm proud of you." Eliza let herself lean into it for exactly 5 seconds, then stepped back before she could get used to the feeling. "Sorry, I'm being ridiculous." "You're being human." Adrian's hands lingered briefly on her shoulders before dropping away. "This deserves celebration. Henderson." The butler appeared so quickly he must have been hovering in the hallway. "Yes, Your Grace?" "Champagne. The good vintage. We're celebrating Miss Harrow's success." Henderson's face broke into an actual smile, something Eliza had never seen before. "Immediately, Your Grace, and may I say, congratulations, Miss Harrow. It's well deserved." He disappeared. Eliza looked at Adrian. "You told him to watch the door." "I suspected good news was coming. Wanted him available for celebration purposes." "You're ridiculous. I'm thorough." The champagne arrived. They toasted in the library, firelight making everything glow gold. "To Eliza Harrow," Adrian said, raising his glass, "who refused to be crushed and became magnificent instead." Eliza's throat tightened. "To stubborn survival." They drank, and Eliza realized that somewhere in the process of fighting for her work, her voice, her future, she'd stopped merely surviving. She'd started living. The book launched 3 months later on a morning that felt like any other, until it wasn't. Eliza woke to Henderson knocking urgently on her door. "Miss Harrow, you need to come downstairs now." She dressed quickly, heart pounding with undefined dread, and found Adrian in the entrance hall surrounded by packages, dozens of them, all addressed to her. "What is this?" Eliza asked. Adrian looked up from the letter he was reading, his expression unreadable. "Your novel released yesterday. These started arriving at dawn." Eliza moved closer, staring at the pile. Packages wrapped in brown paper, letters in various hands, a few elegant boxes that looked expensive. "I don't understand." "Open one," Adrian suggested. She picked up a package at random and unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a copy of her novel. The cover design still made her breath catch, with a letter tucked between the pages. "Dear Miss Harrow, I finished your novel at 3 in the morning and immediately wrote this letter. Your heroine's refusal to accept diminishment has given me courage I didn't know I needed. Thank you for writing her. Thank you for writing truth. With deepest admiration, a grateful reader." Eliza's hand shook. She opened another letter, then another, all variations on the same theme: gratitude, recognition, women writing to say they'd seen themselves in the story and felt less alone. "How many are there?" she whispered. 43 so far. Henderson expects more throughout the day." Adrian was watching her with that intense focus. "Your publisher sent word. The first printing sold out in 2 days. They're rushing a second." The room tilted slightly. That's not possible." "Apparently it is." Adrian handed her another letter, this one on expensive stationery. This one's from Lady Catherine. She's calling your book the most important novel published this decade and using her considerable influence to make sure everyone knows it. Eliza read the letter. Lady Catherine's elegant script praising not just the writing, but what it represented. A woman refusing to soften her edges for approval, demanding space in a world designed to deny it. I need to sit down, Eliza managed. Adrian guided her to a chair. Henderson appeared with tea she didn't remember requesting. The packages sat there, tangible proof that her words had traveled beyond her own desperation into other lives. This changes things, Adrian said quietly. What things? Everything. He crouched beside her chair, eye level. You're not anonymous anymore, not invisible. People will want to meet you, interview you, analyze your work. Society will have to acknowledge you. The prospect was terrifying. What if I'm not ready? You've been ready since you walked into that salon and claimed your place. Adrian's voice was steady. This is just the next step. Over the following weeks, Eliza discovered he was right. Invitations arrived daily. Literary gatherings, intellectual salons, requests for her opinion on everything from serialized fiction to women's education. Lady Catherine personally sponsored her introduction to several influential circles. Not everyone welcomed her. Many still viewed her with suspicion or outright hostility. But the book gave her something she'd never had before. Legitimacy that couldn't be easily dismissed. Miss Harrow, Lady Pemberton's voice at a literary discussion one evening, cold but no longer dismissive. I read your novel. Quite provocative. Thank you. Eliza kept her tone neutral. Though I confess I found your heroine rather harsh. A woman should have some softness, don't you think? I think a woman should have whatever qualities make her survive. Eliza met Lady Pemberton's eyes. Softness is a luxury. Not everyone can afford it. Several people nearby stopped talking to listen. Lady Pemberton's smile tightened. How very modern of you. How very honest of her, Lady Catherine interjected, appearing beside Eliza like a guardian angel in silk. Though I suppose honesty makes some people uncomfortable, particularly when it holds up a mirror they'd rather not look into. The rebuke was gentle but unmistakable. Lady Pemberton excused herself, spine rigid. Lady Catherine squeezed Eliza's arm. Don't let them make you doubt yourself. Your book is important precisely because it makes them uncomfortable. I'm not trying to make anyone uncomfortable. Aren't you? Lady Catherine's eyes gleamed. You wrote a woman who refuses to be grateful for scraps, who demands respect rather than asking for it. That threatens the entire social order. Of course they're uncomfortable. Is that what you think I'm doing? Threatening social order? I think you're telling truth. Truth is always threatening to people who benefit from lies. Lady Catherine paused. Speaking of which, have you given any thought to what comes next? Next? Your next novel. Your publisher must be demanding it. They are. Eliza had been avoiding thinking about it. But I don't know if I can write something that lives up to this one. Then write something completely different. Keep them guessing. Lady Catherine smiled. Though between us, I'm more curious about your personal situation. Eliza's stomach tightened. My situation? You and the Duke, living together, working together, clearly devoted to each other's success. Lady Catherine's gaze was knowing. When are you going to stop pretending there's nothing more between you? We're not pretending. There isn't, my dear. Lady Catherine's voice turned kind. I've been alive 63 years. I recognize love when I see it, even when the people involved are too stubborn to admit it. She drifted away before Eliza could respond, leaving her standing alone with that observation echoing in her mind. Love. Was that what this was? The uncomfortable truth was that Eliza didn't know anymore. Somewhere between brutal critique and quiet support, between debate and shared silence, Adrian had become woven into the fabric of her days so completely that imagining life without him felt like imagining life without breathing. But that wasn't love. That was dependence. Habit. Wasn't it? She found Adrian later that evening in the library reading correspondence. He looked up when she entered. Successful evening? Exhausting. Eliza dropped into her usual chair. Lady Catherine thinks we're in love. Adrian's expression didn't change. Does she? I told her she was wrong. Were you lying? The question hung between them, sharp and dangerous. Eliza's heart hammered. I don't know. Was I? Adrian set down his letter with careful precision. What are you asking me, Eliza? I'm asking. She faltered, then forced herself to continue. I'm asking what this is, what we are, because I don't know anymore, and it's making me insane. What do you want us to be? That's not an answer. It's the only question that matters. Adrian stood, moving to the fireplace. I can tell you what I want, but that doesn't mean anything if you don't want the same thing. Eliza stood too, crossing to stand beside him. Then tell me. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. Then, I want you to stay. Not as a resident under my protection, not as a writer I'm mentoring, but as... He stopped, seeming to search for words. As someone who belongs here because this is where she chooses to be. Because I'm where she chooses to be. The confession was so un-Adrian, raw, and unguarded that Eliza's breath caught. That sounds like love, she whispered. Does it? His voice was rough. I wouldn't know. I've never felt it before. Neither have I. They stood there in the firelight, the admission hanging between them like something fragile and terrifying. I'm afraid, Eliza said finally, of needing someone this much, of losing my independence, of becoming someone who can't survive without you. You'll always survive without me. Adrian's voice was absolutely certain. That's what makes you extraordinary. But surviving alone and choosing partnership are different things. What if I choose wrong? Then you'll survive that too. He turned to face her fully. But Eliza, I need you to be sure, because I won't do this halfway. If you choose me, it's everything. Marriage, partnership, building a life together. I won't settle for less. Marriage. The word should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like relief. I need time, Eliza said, to think, to be certain. Take whatever time you need. Adrian's expression was guarded now, protective. I'm not going anywhere. Eliza fled to her study and spent the next week in a haze of confusion and panic. She wrote furiously, channeling everything she couldn't articulate into new pages. The manuscript that emerged was raw and honest and completely unmarketable, a meditation on independence and connection, fear and courage, the terrifying prospect of choosing to be known. She showed it to Adrian one evening. He read it in silence, his expression giving nothing away. Finally, he looked up. This is a love letter. It's a novel. It's both. Adrian set down the pages. And it's your answer. To what? To whether you love me. His voice was quiet. You do. You're just afraid to say it. Eliza wanted to deny it, couldn't. What if I'm not good at this? She asked instead. At being someone's wife, at sharing my life, at any of it. Then you'll be bad at it, and we'll figure it out together. Adrian stood, crossing to her. Eliza, I don't want you perfect. I don't want you soft or accommodating or any of the things women are supposed to be. I want you exactly as you are, difficult and brilliant and completely uncompromising. That's not a recipe for a peaceful marriage. Good. Peaceful sounds boring. He took her hands. Marry me. Not because you need rescue or security or my protection. Marry me because you want to build something together that's better than what either of us could build alone. Eliza looked at their joined hands, then up at his face, sharp and aristocratic and completely focused on her. Yes, she said. Adrian's eyes widened slightly. Yes? Yes. I'll marry you, even though it's terrifying, even though I don't know how to do this, even though... He kissed her. It was nothing like Eliza had imagined, not gentle or tentative, but fierce and claiming, his hands in her hair, her back against the desk. Years of carefully maintained distance, collapsing into heat and hunger and something almost desperate. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. We're doing this, he said. Apparently. Society is going to lose its mind. Let them. Eliza's hands fisted in his shirt. I'm done caring what they think. Good, because I plan to marry you as publicly as possible. Naturally. They stood there, wrapped around each other, and Eliza felt something shift in her chest. Not fear, not doubt, peace. The engagement announcement appeared in the Times 3 days later. The Duke of Vale is pleased to announce his engagement to Miss Eliza Harrow, author of the acclaimed novel Unbroken. The wedding will take place in June at Vale House. London exploded. The reactions ranged from shocked to scandalized to genuinely pleased. Lady Catherine sent champagne and a note that said simply, "I told you so." Eliza's publisher wrote to suggest she consider writing about women who challenge social conventions, apparently oblivious to the irony. And her aunt. The letter arrived 1 week after the announcement. Henderson brought it to Eliza with visible distaste. "From Lady Whitmore, miss." Eliza stared at the envelope like it might contain poison, which, metaphorically, it probably did. She broke the seal. "Eliza, I suppose congratulations are in order, though I confess I'm shocked the Duke would actually marry you, rather than simply continue the current arrangement. You must have been more accommodating than I gave you credit for. I assume you'll want family present at the wedding. I would be willing to attend, provided certain conditions are met. Primarily, I expect public acknowledgement of the role I played in your upbringing and care. Without my generosity, you would never have been in a position to meet the Duke. Additionally, I believe an appropriate gift would be in order. Perhaps an allowance, in recognition of my years of sacrifice on your behalf. £10,000 annually seems reasonable. I await your response. Genevieve Whitmore." Eliza read the letter twice, then started laughing. Adrian appeared in the doorway. "What's funny?" "My aunt." Eliza handed him the letter. "She wants credit for my success and £10,000 a year for the privilege of having starved and humiliated me." Adrian read it, his expression darkening with each line. "Extraordinary. The woman has truly perfected shamelessness. What should I do?" "What do you want to do?" Eliza considered. A year ago, even 6 months ago, this letter would have devastated her. The reminder of her aunt's cruelty, the presumption that Eliza owed her anything, the sheer audacity of demanding payment for abuse. Now it just seemed pathetic. "I want to respond," Eliza said slowly, "but not with anger, with honesty." Even better. She wrote the reply that evening. "Aunt Genevieve, thank you for your letter. I'm afraid I must decline your generous offer to attend my wedding. Your presence would be a distraction from what should be a joyful occasion. Regarding your request for financial compensation, I owe you nothing. You took me in out of obligation and made sure I understood it was a burden every single day. You fed me scraps, housed me in servants' quarters, and used every opportunity to remind me of my worthlessness. What you didn't do was break me. I survived your cruelty and built something you can't understand. A life based on my own merit, my own work, my own worth. The Duke isn't marrying me out of pity or because I was accommodating. He's marrying me because he respects my mind and values my partnership. You taught me many things, though not what you intended. You taught me that survival requires stubbornness, that gentleness is a choice, not a requirement, that dignity isn't given, it's claimed. For those lessons, however brutally delivered, I suppose I should thank you. I wish you well, but I wish it from a distance." Eliza Harrow. Future Duchess of Vale. She showed it to Adrian. He read it and smiled, that rare, genuine expression. "Perfect. Send it." The letter went out the next morning. Her aunt's response never came, which was answer enough. The wedding preparations consumed the following months. Eliza let Adrian handle most of it, focusing instead on finishing her new manuscript. She wrote with a freedom she'd never experienced before. No fear of discovery, no hiding, no apologies. The novel that emerged was different from her previous work. Softer in some ways, harder in others. A story about a woman who learns that independence and connection aren't opposites. They're choices you can make simultaneously. Her publisher loved it. Lady Catherine called it her finest work yet. Edmund Carver attended one of the pre-wedding gatherings at Lady Catherine's insistence. He'd married a sweet-natured baron's daughter the previous month, someone who would give him the gentle partnership he'd wanted. "You look happy," he said when Eliza found him alone on the terrace. "I am. I'm glad." He seemed to mean it. "I was wrong. About the Duke, about all of it. You were trying to protect me. I was trying to control you." Edmund's smile was rueful. "I wanted to rescue you, shape you into what I thought you should be. Adrian just let you become what you already were." "That's not entirely true." He pushed me, challenged me. But he never tried to change you. Edmund paused. That's the difference. They stood in companionable silence, two people who'd cared for each other finding peace in separate paths. Be happy, Eliza, Edmund said finally. You too. He went back inside. Eliza stayed on the terrace, looking out over London's glittering lights, and felt gratitude for the man who'd offered her safety, even though she couldn't accept it. The wedding took place on a brilliant June morning. Eliza wore burgundy silk, the same color as the gown she'd worn to that first salon, because white felt like a lie, and she was done lying. Lady Catherine stood as her witness, a choice that raised eyebrows and pleased Eliza immensely. The ceremony was small, intimate, just the people who actually mattered. When Adrian took her hand, his grip was solid and sure. Ready? He murmured. Terrified. Good. Me too. The words were spoken, the vows exchanged. Eliza Harrow became the Duchess of Vale and felt the weight of the title settle alongside the relief of partnership. The reception afterward was larger, Adrian's political necessity, but Eliza found she didn't mind. She moved through the crowd as herself, not apologizing, not hiding. When people congratulated her, she accepted it as her due. Lady Pemberton approached late in the evening, her expression complicated. Your Grace. The title felt strange applied to Eliza. I wanted to, that is, she faltered, clearly struggling. Yes? Eliza kept her tone neutral. I was wrong. About you, about your work, about what you were capable of. The admission seemed to cost her. I judged you harshly and unfairly. I'm sorry. Eliza studied the older woman. The apology wasn't graceful, but it was genuine. Thank you, she said finally. That means more than you probably realize. Lady Pemberton nodded stiffly and moved away. Lady Catherine appeared at Eliza's elbow. Well, hell must have frozen over. She apologized. I noticed. You handled it gracefully. Should I have made her suffer more? Probably. But grace is more powerful than revenge. Lady Catherine clinked her glass against Eliza's. To the new Duchess. May you use your power wisely and your wit ruthlessly. I'll do my best. Adrian found her as the evening wound down, pulling her into a quiet corner. Surviving? Thriving, actually. Eliza leaned into him. This is surreal. Which part? All of it. Being married, being a duchess, being acknowledged as someone who matters. You always mattered. Adrian's arms tightened around her. The world just finally noticed. They stood there while the celebration continued around them. Two people who'd found each other in the wreckage and built something stronger than either had imagined possible. The first year of marriage was an adjustment. Adrian traveled frequently for political obligations. Eliza accompanied him sometimes, but more often stayed at Vale House writing. Her second novel under her married name was published to even greater acclaim than the first. They argued, frequently and passionately, about literature and politics, and whose turn it was to compromise on social obligations. Adrian was stubborn. Eliza was worse. But they also laughed, worked side by side in the library, critiquing each other's writing and thinking with brutal honesty, built a partnership based on respect rather than romance, though the romance was there too. You're impossible, Adrian said one evening after a particularly heated debate about narrative structure. You married me anyway. Clearly a lapse in judgment. Too late now. He pulled her into his lap. Thank heavens for that. They kissed, the argument forgotten, or at least postponed. 2 years after the wedding, Eliza's third novel sparked a genuine cultural conversation about women's roles and rights. She was invited to speak at universities, literary societies, political gatherings. Her words, both written and spoken, carried weight. Adrian accompanied her to a particularly contentious lecture where she argued for women's property rights. The audience was split, half applauding, half outraged. Afterward, a young woman approached her, shy and determined. Your Grace? I just wanted to say thank you. Your books gave me courage to leave an impossible situation. I'm training to be a teacher now, because of you. Eliza felt her throat tighten. That's all you. I just wrote words. Words matter. The young woman smiled. They saved my life. She disappeared into the crowd. Adrian took Eliza's hand. Still think you don't make a difference? I write stories, that's all. You write truth. You give people language for experiences they thought they had to suffer silently. He pulled her close. That's revolution, love. Quiet, powerful revolution. 5 years after that first humiliating ballroom encounter, Eliza stood in her study at Vale House, looking at the shelf of books bearing her name. 8 novels now, each one a piece of her soul, her anger, her hope. The woman who'd written them was unrecognizable from the desperate girl who'd arrived here begging for sanctuary. That girl had been afraid of everything. This woman feared nothing. Well, almost nothing. The conversation she needed to have with Adrian still made her nervous. She found him in the library, as always. He looked up when she entered, immediately setting aside his work. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Eliza sat beside him. "I've been thinking." "Dangerous." She smiled despite her nerves. "I want to start a publishing house for women writers, women whose work is too honest or too angry or too unconventional for traditional publishers." Adrian leaned back, studying her. "That's ambitious." "It's necessary. I get letters every week from women with manuscripts they can't sell because their heroines aren't soft enough. Their stories aren't comfortable enough. I want to give them a platform. It will be controversial, difficult, expensive. I know. You'll face opposition, mockery, possibly worse. I know that too." Eliza met his eyes. "But I have something now I didn't have before. Resources, influence, a voice people listen to. It seems wasteful not to use it." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled. "How much capital do you need to start?" Eliza's heart soared. "You'll support this? Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might try to talk me out of it. It's risky." "Everything you've done has been risky. That's never stopped you before." Adrian pulled her into his arms. "Though I'm claiming editorial oversight. Your judgment in manuscripts is excellent, but your business sense needs work." "I have excellent business sense. You tried to pay Henderson's salary out of your own earnings last month. He works hard. He's employed by the estate. You don't need to personally compensate him for doing his job." Adrian kissed her forehead. "See? Business sense needs work." Eliza laughed, the sound free and genuine. "Fine. You handle the finances. I'll handle the manuscripts. Deal." The publishing house launched 6 months later. They called it Sterling Press, a nod to Eliza's pen name and the quality they promised to maintain. The first book they published was a novel by a factory worker's daughter about labor conditions and women's solidarity. It was angry, uncompromising, and magnificent. Traditional publishers called it unmarketable. It sold 20,000 copies in the first month. Over the following years, Sterling Press became synonymous with bold, honest women's writing. They published novels that made people uncomfortable, essays that sparked debates, poetry that gave voice to experiences society preferred to ignore. Not every book succeeded commercially, but every book mattered. Eliza's own writing continued alongside the publishing work. She wrote less frequently now, but with more purpose. Each novel took longer, went deeper, asked harder questions. Her 10th novel, published when she was 35, was a meditation on power and accountability, written in response to a political scandal. It was her most commercially successful work, and the one that finally, definitively, established her as one of England's most important living writers. Lady Catherine hosted a celebration. The guest list included politicians, intellectuals, artists, people who shaped culture and policy. Eliza moved among them as an equal, her opinions sought and valued. "Remember when they called you unmarketable?" Lady Catherine asked, watching Eliza debate parliamentary reform with a cabinet minister. "I was unmarketable," Eliza said. "I just refused to let that stop me." "That's the difference between you and everyone else. They accept limitations. You break them." Eliza glanced across the room to where Adrian was deep in conversation with her publisher. He caught her eye and smiled, small, private, meant only for her. 15 years since that first dinner. 15 years of building a life that looked nothing like what she'd imagined and everything she'd needed. "I got lucky," Eliza said. "Luck had nothing to do with it." Lady Catherine's voice was firm. "You chose courage over safety, work over comfort, partnership over submission. That's not luck. That's wisdom." Later that night, back at Vale House, Eliza and Adrian sat in the library where so much of their life had been negotiated and built. Tired? Adrian asked. Exhilarated. Eliza curled into his side. Also terrified. Sterling Press wants to expand. I'm considering opening a bookshop that exclusively sells women's writing. Of course you are. You think it's too much? I think you've never done anything halfway in your life. Why start now? Adrian kissed the top of her head. Though I reserve the right to veto any business plans that require selling this house to fund them. The house is safe. For now. They sat in comfortable silence, the fire crackling, 15 years of partnership settling around them like a blanket. Do you ever regret it? Eliza asked quietly. Marrying me, taking on all of this chaos. Adrian pulled back to look at her. Eliza, you are the best decision I've ever made. The most interesting, challenging, rewarding partnership I could have imagined. Regret doesn't begin to enter into it. Even when I'm impossible? Especially then. Impossible means you're still fighting. His expression softened. That's what I love about you. You never stop fighting for what matters. Eliza kissed him, long and thorough and full of 15 years of gratitude and partnership and love that had grown from mutual respect into something unshakable. Thank you, she whispered against his lips. For what? For seeing me, when I was invisible to everyone else. For believing I could become something when I barely believed it myself. I didn't make you anything. You were already extraordinary. I just gave you space to prove it. It was the kind of thing he'd say, deflecting credit, making it about her strength rather than his support. But Eliza knew better. She'd needed both, the internal drive and the external belief, the stubborn refusal to be crushed and someone who'd stand beside her while she fought. They'd built something together that was stronger than either of them alone. That night, Eliza dreamed of the girl she'd been, standing frozen in a ballroom while laughter crashed around her, certain she'd never be anything but forgettable. She wanted to tell that girl, hold on, it gets better, you get stronger. The people who diminish you don't win, you win. But the girl in the dream couldn't hear her. She was too busy surviving, moment by moment, breath by breath. So Eliza let her be, because that girl didn't need comfort from the future. She needed to fight her way forward and discover on her own that survival could transform into triumph, that the woman dismissed as poor and forgettable could become impossible to ignore, that power wasn't given, it was claimed, and that the story wasn't over, it was just beginning. Eliza woke to morning light streaming through the window and Adrian's arm around her waist. She could hear Henderson moving through the house below, starting the day. Somewhere in her study, a new manuscript waited, half-finished and demanding attention. She had work to do, books to publish, stories to tell, a world to change one honest word at a time. It wasn't the life she'd imagined 15 years ago, desperate and defeated. It was infinitely better, because she'd chosen it, built it, claimed it, and she was just getting started,